Hi everyone, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Nancy, and if this is your first time seeing my channel, please subscribe and also turn on your notification bell so you'll be the first to be notified when I upload new tutorials. So in today's class, I'm going to be sharing with you guys on how to make this sleeve. If this is something you're interested in learning, keep on watching and let's get started. So for the body of this sleeve, I'll be making use of this lace fabric, and the amount of this lace fabric is just half yard. And I would be making use of a African print fabric for the flare part of the sleeve. And you would be needing just 1 yard of this African print fabric. So this is the lace I'm working with, and I'm going to fold it into two, the wrong side of the fabric facing each other, and then making sure that the borders are placed directly on each other as well. Now I'm going to go ahead to fold it again into two this way. Take note of how I folded this fabric. So remember that one of our videos we drafted a basic short and long sleeve. So now I'm going to be bringing the pattern for the basic long sleeve. And if you haven't seen the tutorial on how I drafted this sleeve, I'll be dropping the link in the description box. So let's work on the pattern now. So for this particular style, my actual sleeve length is 25 inches. And since there'll be a flare at the bottom of the sleeve, I would like the length of my flare to be 5 inches. So now I'm going to subtract this 5 inches from my actual sleeve length, and that will be 25 minus 5, which would give me 20 inches. Now I'm going to mark 20 inches here, and then I'll draw a straight line across this point I marked. So once you have done this, you can decide to cut through this line you just made now. But if you have the intentions of using this sleeve pattern for another purpose, then you can fold the rest of the sleeve at the bottom instead of cutting it out. So once you have done this, you're going to go ahead to place the center fold of the sleeve pattern directly on the center fold of the actual fabric. Here you would notice that I didn't place the sleeve pattern at the bottom of the fabric, but instead I placed it at the top here, and this is because I don't want the lace fabric to be wasted. So after cutting out the sleeve, you understand what I'm trying to explain. So now you're going to go ahead to add the stitching allowances to the side of the pattern. Now on the armhole area here, I'm going to add half of an inch stitching allowance. On the side there, I'm going to mark 1 inch stitching allowance. And at the bottom, I'm going to mark just half of an inch stitching allowance. So now I'm going to cut out the sleeve following the white lines I made. So remember that the lace is just half yard, and after cutting out the sleeve this way, this would be the fabric that will be left. That was the reason why I said that it's best to place the pattern at the top so that at least you'd have little left over in case you want to use it for something else. But if you place the pattern at the bottom of the fabric, you realize that after cutting out the sleeve, the remaining leftover fabric wouldn't be useful anymore. Now I'm going to take out the pattern and I'll go ahead to spread out the sleeves. So now because this fabric was folded into two, we are going to be having two sleeves after cutting. Now I'm going to keep one of the sleeve aside so that I can work on just this single sleeve. Now I'm going to fold this sleeve into two equally, and then I would head over to my sewing machine to stitch the sides of the sleeve by 1 inch. After doing this, I would also repeat the same sewing process for the second sleeve. So after stitching the sides of the sleeve, I turned the sleeve to the right side of the fabric. So this is basically all for making the pencil sleeve. Now to make the flare part of the sleeve, we are going to be taking the measurements of the round opening at the bottom of the sleeve. So the round opening at the bottom of my sleeve is 10 inches. So now we are going to be working on the flare part. This is my fabric here, and kindly pay attention to how I'll be folding this. I folded the fabric into two this way, and I folded it into two again this way. So I practically folded this fabric into four. Now since the round opening of my sleeve at the bottom is 10 inches, I'm going to divide the 10 inches into four. So whatever you get at the bottom of your sleeve opening, you should divide it into four, just like you see me doing. So when I divided 10 inches into four, I got 2.5 inches. So this folded edge of the fabric here is where I'll be placing the 2.5 inches. So I'm going to place the tape in a standing position to make a curve here. So after arranging the tape this way, you're going to mark a point here. So this is 2.5. I'm going to make a mark here. So once you've done that, you're going to measure from the tip of the fold to this new point you marked. So what I have here is 1 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to place my tape from the tip of the fold to keep marking 1 3/4 of an inch. So leaving the starting of the tape at the tip of the fold and adjusting the rest of the tape to mark whatever measurement you got would actually create a curve here. Now I would connect these points together. So guys, if you don't want this flare to have pleating, then you can leave it this way. But if you want to add pleat to your flare so that it looks fuller, then all you have to do is to mark half of an inch below this first circle you've marked already. So this would help the sleeve opening to be wider than the actual measurement. And with the excess you'll be having, you'll be able to pleat the sleeve around the sleeve opening at the bottom. So guys, remember that I said my actual long sleeve is 25 inches and we gave 20 inches in length to the pencil sleeve and 5 inches to the flare. So now we are going to place the remaining 5 inches here, starting from the second curved line. Remember that we want to pleat the flare, so the second curved line is where you should place your tape measure. Because of stitching allowance, I'll be adding extra 1 inch to the bottom, and this would be 6 inches altogether. So you just keep placing your tape at the second curve line and tilting it to mark 6 inches all the way down to this other side of the fold. Now I'm going to go ahead to cut through the white line at the bottom. After cutting, you would use your pin to hold the flare together and then you go ahead to cut through the second line. So guys, we just made one flare. To make the second flare, I would fold my actual fabric into two and I'll further fold it into two again, just like we did when we were making the first flare. Now I'm going to place the first flare directly on the actual fabric this way, making sure that the edges here are the same and the edges on this side, which is into two here. Once this is done, I'll go ahead to trim out. So make sure you pay attention to the areas I'm cutting. So once you're done cutting out the second flare, you go ahead to unpin the fabric and then you'd spread it out this way. You'd notice that there'll be a circle at the middle. So this is for the other flare as well. Now to attach this flare to the bottom of the sleeve is very easy. All you have to do is to make sure that the right side of the fabric is facing you and then you insert the sleeve into the hole at the center of the flare. So once this is done, you go ahead to place the printed fabric on the edges of the sleeve opening here to pin them together. And while pinning, you can then go ahead to pleat the African print fabric around the sleeve opening at the edges. After pinning together, you would head over to the sewing machine to stitch the edges by half of an inch. And once you have joined the flare to the sleeve, you turn it to the right side of the fabric and this is what it will be looking like. Although I've not stitched it yet, but you can see how beautiful it is. Now the final step is to stitch the hem of the flare itself, that's the bottom of the flare. You're going to fold it in by half of an inch and further fold it in by half of an inch. So you just take your time to do this. This is like a circular shape, right? So at times it might be very difficult for beginners to be able to stitch it without pinning. So guys, I've joined the flare to the pencil sleeve and I've also stitched the ends of the flare, and this is the final look. So guys, this is how to go about making a pencil sleeve with a flare attached to it. So if you'd like to learn how I made the underbust corset dress to which I attached the sleeve to, I'll be dropping the link to the dress tutorial in the description box. Alright guys, thanks for watching and see you in my next tutorial.